everyone. The last segment of the year as we transition into the new year. I'm excited and I'm thankful to the Lord for each and every one of you that has taken time out of your busy schedules to join us here at Manhandled to hear from God. Our prayers that it's been a benefit to you in this year, and even as we prepare to transition into 2022, we've got some exciting things for you. On tonight, we've got the All-Star Squad in the house. We got the All-Star Squad. Yeah. So I'm so thankful for these gentlemen that have decided to join me and agreed to join me on tonight. To my left, I have Deacon Larry Jackson. He's with us tonight. Amen. And Pastor James Tazo. And to my right, I have Elder Mario Smith. And so these are dynamic men of God. I trust the heart of God that's in them and the voice of God that when they speak a thing and they utter a word from God, I know it to be sure and true. And so I'm excited. We're going to dialogue. There'll be opportunities for you all to comment, to ask questions. Even as we are dialoguing and asking questions, I'm going to ask these men some questions that'll help us kind of calibrate ourselves as we close out this year and transition into the next. It's imperative and important to understand that how you close out a thing determines how you enter into the new thing, a new season of your life. And so I'm so excited about our time together tonight. So we're going to jump right in. Amen. And we're going to get right to these questions. And again, please don't hesitate to comment. Please don't hesitate to state your question, and we'll make sure to address it. If you desire to have your question made known to everybody, you can just ask your question on the Facebook Live, on our social media sites, YouTube. If you desire to stay anonymous, then you can inbox, and then that question will be given to us without your identity being made known. And so again, thank you for joining us, and let's get to it.
Let's go. All right.
So gentlemen, this is a question that I have. The first portion of our time together tonight will be geared around, and we'll address questions concerning the impact that the pandemic has had on us as men. Mm-hmm. So here's the first question. Has the pandemic caused you to draw closer to God, or do you feel distant as a result of the pandemic?
I'll start it off, Bishop. Or for me, it gave me time to grow closer.
Okay.
Because doing that, I did a lot of more studying and focusing on it. But one of the other good things about it is that when I looked at the situation, everything that was happening, the people without food, but then to see how the community came up, and to me that was just seeing God work. And stuff.
Yeah, excellent.
Just being transparent, I want to say it was a little bit of both for me.
Okay.
In the beginning of the pandemic, I felt that there was distance because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how to react. I didn't see it coming. And I think that distance over a period of time caused me to become or draw closer. As things begin to kind of normalize in that chaos. I had no choice, and I pulled my family in as well in that same direction.
Because you have to acclimate yourself to it. Because part of the challenge is it's a new norm. That we were social distancing, we were shelter in place. We were separated from our loved ones, our friends, our church families. We weren't having live services. We were Zooming and social media sites and all that kind of stuff, and it was strange, and it was. Preaching to an empty room is difficult. It is a challenge to preach.
And that will make you feel distant.
It will. And so all those things, you have to acclimate yourself to it. But I think for me, it was both, like you said. Because there were times when, I would cry out to God and ask God questions, and there was no response. Maybe I'm the only one.
I've been there.
I'm the one that he doesn't talk to all the time.
I've been there.
And I heard him say that the reason he's not talking to me because y'all got him so preoccupied.
That's what
he's talking to y'all. But here's one of the things I do understand and know, and I think it's natural and spiritual, is that when a lesson is being taught, there's collaboration and discussion. When a test is being taken, there is no talking.
How about that?
Wow.
Like that.
When a
Wow.
test is being taken, there's no talking. You can raise your hand, and the instructor will not even acknowledge your hand is raised, because this is a test. This is a test whereby you have been prepared
good.
for, you have been given instruction, you have learned the material. Now it's time to demonstrate what you have learned during the test. And so I think that in some of these times, there were tests that were taking place and tests that were going on, and we are raising our hand and raising our voice to the Lord, and he wasn't saying anything. He wanted to know, what have you learned prior to this that will carry you through this and help you understand the engagement and help you know that you have not just passed the test, but you understand the assignment and the information that was shared.
Right.
So absolutely.
So if we stay with that example, there are some tests that are quick.
Yeah.
And
Quiz.
Quiz and final exams.
Pop quiz.
But then, even like you said, Elder Mario, the final exam can be a period. But when you're taking the bar, you're going to be there a minute. When we're going to take when you're trying to get past the MCAT or that, you're going to be there a minute.
Absolutely.
Because the requirement of our understanding and professionalism and experience of what was given in the information, they're not looking for surface. And I think that's where we are. If it had been, for lack of a better term, if it had been a soft reset, where they said, all right, everybody shut in, and then next week, all right, you can come back. We're gonna be like, oh, that was nothing.
And I think that's what it was. We had the anticipation of a quiz, but it was a bar exam. And I think that was the case for a lot of people, because I went into this thinking it was going to be a quiz.
Real quick, we'll be back.
You know what's interesting about that, and I'm so glad you brought that up as a point, because I've understood in going through academia, the different phases, undergraduate, graduate, PhD level study, and the rigor of that type of program. When you're undergraduate, it is you're learning ideas. You're understanding ideas, precepts, and concepts. When you're in graduate school, then you're giving your voice to it, to an idea, to a structure. You're adding something to it. When you are in a PhD
you
program,
creating it.
you are creating a
Yes.
problem statement to be addressed. And so those living levels of academia speak to a lot of what God does in our lives. As we are babes, then it's a discussion.
Right.
And you just kind of understand the moment.
And we holding his hand.
Exactly. And he's holding our hand and walking us through it. When you grow and you transition and you're no longer babe, but now you desire this, no longer desiring the milk of the word, but you need some meat. At that point, then it's, what do you add to the discussion? What do you add to the problem statement?
Because that's where I believe our Heavenly Father is looking for. What is our proficiency? And what is our proficiency in what you have been claiming to do in church all these years?
What have you been taught? Because what you've been taught and what you have to articulate in your understanding of the teaching are oftentimes two different things. So you've been taught something, but your articulation is off. You've been in the same class that everybody else has been in. But when it comes time for you to take the test, you have forgotten. You didn't show up on that day or something, because you didn't miss the whole thing. But I think those are the things that God takes us through, and the moments that He takes us through, for us to understand, one, that we've grown. Because I don't know about you, but I have grown tremendously in this time. One, it shows us that we've grown. Two, it helps us to understand what we now know, what we have gathered, what we come to understand, and also what we can add to any discussion.
Absolutely.
And so those things are pertinent for us to understand, and those things are played out and fleshed out when it's time to take the test.
Exactly.
You ever get a test and you're surprised at how well you did?
Yes, sir.
That's true.
You get the test back and you're like, oh my, I got an A? What? I was just praying for a C. And I got an A. Well, you knew it's because you knew more than you thought you knew. But you would not know that unless
you had a test.
You had the test.
One of the things that, and just to add to that, is the old saying, adapt and overcome. And it's the mere fact that, okay, the Lord been prepping us. And now He's testing us. How do we respond?
Exactly.
Wow. Good stuff. So let me go on to this next question, because we got tons of questions, and I want to prayerfully, hopefully, we can get through all of them. So,
And we want to hear from them too.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So please, ma'am, please, sir, if you have a question, you have a comment, please just put it in the comments, or you can inbox if you want to keep your, keep it undercover. You
Anonymous,
want to be anonymous. That's what I was trying to say. So here's the next one. The pandemic has required many of us to live up close and personal for a year, a year plus,
Right.
up close and personal. Well, we have been used to getting up and going through our routine of getting up and going to work and being at work all day and then coming home and
Right.
experiencing the family. But in this pandemic season, we have been living up close and personal.
Yes, sir.
What impact has this had on your relationships, your marriages, children, and family?
I'll have to say this. I think the largest adjustment was for my kids.
Okay.
Because and Jay is a freshman now, so she did her senior year straight through the pandemic.
Okay.
And it was a matter of self-sufficiency, proficiency, self-motivated. So I explained to her, you got a free crash course in what college is going to be.
Sure.
Because there's no professor's going to follow up and say, are you coming? And there's no, when you turn it in late, they're like, well, thanks, but that's a zero.
Yeah.
So that for them, that was an adjustment, and it was an adjustment for them because all of a sudden now I don't have to physically get up, do all the prep work, and then go out. It was, okay, class, I got 4 more minutes to sleep. Okay, now I can jump up. No, in order for us to do better, you got to do better no matter what the setting is. For me in my profession, it was a mild adjustment because while I didn't go, I'm a hybrid between office and out in the field as it is. So there was the biggest proficiency or the biggest adjustment for me was the awareness. Oh yeah, so whenever I'm going into someone else's home, now I'm exposed to this atmosphere in this setting, and I had to be cognizant that that could potentially come back to my home.
Sure.
So I make that adjustment. I will say that I'm grateful that the pandemic happened at this stage of life, because if it had happened earlier, I'd have me one of them pandemic babies.
Well, there's going to be a lot of them out there.
Yes, it is.
It's going to be a whole generation that we're going to call a pandemic baby. So, absolutely. You know, it's interesting, and you said something as it relates to the hybrid model. You know, sometimes you're in your home office, but there's some other times you have to go out and engage in other people's homes, you know, because of the type of work you do. You know what's interesting about that is that until the pandemic, I never really thought about what I bring home with me.
Exactly.
I never really thought about, and it wasn't just contracting a disease, contracting this COVID-19, going out and what you engage in and what you open yourself up to,
Exactly.
and what you find yourself
has an impact on your
around.
whole family. Yeah.
You carry some of that stuff back home with you, and you don't even understand and know that you're doing it, and it has an influence and it has an impact on your whole family.
Yes.
And your whole family dynamic. So you bring things in, you go out, you do stuff, you go places where you shouldn't be, and nobody knows what you're doing during the day but you. But you're some places where you should not be, you're doing what you should not do, and you don't understand that being in that place and doing those things, when you leave, doesn't end there.
Correct.
There are things that you bring home with you that have an impact on your very life and
Yes,
the
sir.
life of your family. And so when you said that, I thought about, oftentimes we think about just the pandemic in that regard, but we should, certainly as men, as fathers, as husbands, we should understand that where we go and what we open up ourselves to,
Yes.
there's a propensity to attach itself to us, and we carry that thing back home, and it has a negative impact on our families.
I want to add or answering that question, asking me. I don't feel the dynamics between my wife Sheila have changed too much. Now she may answer a little bit differently. I think it's probably sometimes she wanted to sit me on the back stoop, but
That's the truth.
right. But you know, we've always spent, you know, a lot of good quality time together.
Right.
And I have a somewhat flexible job.
Okay.
At certain times of the year. It's only certain times where it's like really crazy for me. But the biggest thing this pandemic did was I think I relearned my children.
Wow.
The amount of time that I was able to see them being, you know, at home, not going to school. There were certain aspects of their personality that I met.
Sure.
There were certain things that
you didn't know those personalities.
I did not. And so, and just, you know, all transparency, I think it was an opportunity for me to see where I was falling short in
Gotcha.
Being able to reach them,
Okay.
or areas where I needed to shore up, or things that I needed to discuss and make sure, you know, I talk about, just because the amount of time that I was spending with them
Gotcha.
throughout the day, I was able to see, okay, I see some influences here that can be kind of recontoured, let's say. But it was an opportunity for me to really spend some good time with my children and relearn them and adjust some things.
I like that.
Some things were good and some things were not so good.
Gotcha. You know, it's interesting because my dynamic is a little different because all of our kids are gone.
Yeah.
We're empty nesters. So, you know,
One
our
day.
boys,
Thank you.
our girls, our boys are gone. Our daughter, you know, she just finished. She just finished and turned in her last paper. She just turned
Penn
it
State
in.
she's going to, right? Is that what she's
I think that's one of the schools she's interested
Okay.
in, but
Okay.
I'm hoping to believe
Awesome.
in God that she's going to go to Morehouse School of Medicine.
All right.
Georgia. That's
There
what
we
I'm
go.
hoping for.
All right.
But so it was my wife and I, and one of the things I found out and come to understand that in the relationship aspect of things, that in close proximity is going to show you one or two things. Either it's going to show you how strong your marriage is and how connected you are, or it's going to show you the problem areas and the things and places that need to be shored up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so my wife and I, you know, we have this relationship where we talk all the time. I mean, if I go, you know, a few hours out talking to her, you know, I'm probably
Something wrong.
withdrawals. Exactly. So we talk. So that was great for us. And when those moments, you know, we loved it. We were loving it. You know, I get my meeting. I come out my meeting. You know, we talk a little bit. We have some lunch or something. Go back into a meeting. Come out of the meeting. You know, we're hanging out. We're getting our schedule together for, you know, our shows to come on TV that night, and we're gonna watch.
There you go.
And all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it was just great. It was great. But I also came to understand, especially in my role as senior pastor here at Redeeming Love, is that there were people who were identifying and finding out things about one another that they did not know. Things that they had to deal with.
Sure.
Things that weren't equitable for the marriage. There were things that was being done that shouldn't be done.
A lot of things coming to light during this pandemic.
A lot of things coming to light. And so, but I think that's an opportunity. I think that was a God opportunity for marriages to be shored up and strengthened, for the weak places to be made strong, for the broken places to be repaired and fixed. But because what we do is we allow life to dictate for us and cause us to push stuff and brush stuff under the rug and not deal with it, not face it, not talk about it. Because we can say, well, life, the busyness of life, I got to go to work, I'm at work for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, I come home, the kids need me, you know, we got to go to this event, that event, this recital, this sports event, all those type of things that they have going on. So we immerse ourselves in that, knowing that something's not quite right in our personal relationship, in our marital relationship, but we choose not to address it and sweep it under the carpet and not act like it's there. But we were faced to, and that we were called to face it, and we were required to face it during this pandemic.
You know, it's I call it the breaking of the bread. You know, we talk about how Jesus blessed the bread, broke it, and served it. And this pandemic, there was a lot of bread breaking.
Wow.
And people look at that as such a bad thing, for those things to come to light. And some of them may not necessarily feel good.
Sure.
But the bread is necessary to be broken so it can be consumed.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to eat an entire loaf of bread at one time?
I have not.
Only Deacon Jeff.
Tell me, Jeff Smith can do that. But the bread has to be broken.
Right. But you're the only person that came to mind when Brother Mario posed that question.
Yeah.
Because he can sit down and
Eat the whole loaf of bread.
Yeah, so sorry.
But it has to be broken in order to be consumed.
Yeah.
It has to be broken in order for it to be served properly. And so you can look at that breaking during this time of being shut in as, this is something that's going to destroy me, or is this something that's going to edify my body? Is this something that we can strengthen and build from and grow from and make us stronger?
Yeah. You'd be surprised at what people had to deal with and face in the moments where they were forced to be together and confront the issues and challenges that they were faced with. You'd be surprised at how challenging some of the situations and circumstances were. But I believe it was a season and a time where God wanted marriages to be made whole and to be healed, and gave us opportunity to do those things and have to confront those things that we would not otherwise confront.
Right, exactly.
Because of the busyness of life.
Yeah, and you really didn't have much of a choice.
Yeah,
you didn't.
But you know, my situation was a little bit different. You guys do something they call work.
I'm sure you remember that for some years ago.
I'm
sure.
Once in a while. But for us, and it depends on the type of relationship that you have. And me and the wife, man, we enjoyed it. It seemed like, I guess it brought us closer together, because I think we were as close as we can get.
Sure.
But it just showed how much we just enjoy being around each other.
I mean,
we would be sitting back and we would hear people talking about, man, I wish you'd go to work or do this, that, and the other. And we were like, hey, we
love life. We loving life. Absolutely.
One of the things that you guys did get a little bit of a taste of what it's like when you retire.
There you go.
So then
I'm gonna love it then.
And you're getting a chance to enjoy her and see how she acts when you get on her nerves.
Right.
But you know what? Some of those things have played out even into some decisions that are being made today, right now. And what we find is across organizations, people are applying for retirement. Retirement.
Yes.
Because they understood now, you know what? This is better than I thought it was going to be.
Right.
And I
can handle this.
I can do this. And so people are retiring, and it is such an interesting dynamic. Here's the next question. And look, we're halfway into the show, and this is our third question. So here's this question. And I'm posing this question because what I've come to understand is relationships, as we have determined that they were, unfortunately, were not always as we thought.
Sure.
And so while we were in close proximity with family members and wives and that's our children, that sort of thing, we had to live at a distance with friends and other relationships. I'm talking about significant friends, best friends, and people we have grown up with for years, and the impact that the pandemic has had on those relationships. Because what I've come to find out is there are some people that I thought I was really close and tight with, only to find out that we're not as tight as I thought we were. We're not as close anymore. There was a season and a time that we were very close, but over the years, you just kind of, you go out and you do other things, and you engage with other people, and you make other friendships and relationships, and there's some relationships that are just seasonal.
Yeah,
and it's okay.
That's true.
Exactly.
There's some relationships that are seasonal, and there's other relationships that are intended and meant for a lifetime. But we as people, more times than not, we try to hold on to every relationship as it's a lifelong relationship.
Exactly.
And I've come to find out that in this season, that every relationship is not intended for the rest of my life.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Because as each individual grow, even in that relationship, either you grow together or you grow apart.
Sure.
One of the things that I noticed during the pandemic and for me, it was like a continuous preparation before the pandemic, because I don't work.
I think you heard that. I think you heard that once or twice already.
But the point is that because of that, my so-called my friends that I did have, when I'm off, they're working.
Sure.
And so I respect their time.
Absolutely.
So when they're off, you know, I just go do whatever I need to do just to get them the freedom. Because, you know, you working all day, you come home, you're tired. You don't want to be bothered with or anyone.
And there's a honey-do list more times.
Yeah.
That honey-do list.
Yeah, and so I respect that part. Plus now, my true friends, and there's only one or two.
True friends.
Now, we
I appreciate that,
communicate.
Brother Larry.
We talk and we communicate on the phone. And we will actually go visit each other. But when we did, he's over there, I'm over here. And we were still talking, still maintain that connection.
And you could pick up. You could pick up right where you left off.
Right where you left off.
True friends.
Yes,
Real
yes.
friends can pick up that way. You know, you said something that was so important. You said we either grow together or we grow apart. What I heard in that is there's still growth that's taking place.
Right.
Whether we're going together or whether we're going apart, we're still growing.
Yes, sir.
And there's sometimes, I think it's intentional that we go apart in some relationships, but we're both still growing. We're growing toward the purpose and plan and will of the Father. We're doing what He's required us to do. We're doing what we believe He has purposed us for, and sometimes it does not include every relationship.
Yes.
Wow.
But what's
Can we
important
accept that?
is that we are still growing.
That's right.
Whether we're going together
Or going apart. And I think that's hard for some people to accept. Like you said before, you know, we try and hold on to every relationship as if it's so significant.
Sure.
But can we accept the fact that there's some things, some plan and purpose of God that may not necessarily include you?
Yeah.
You know, and can I be okay with that? And I know there's been a couple of people during this pandemic where that was the case.
Sure.
You know?
And then they feel some kind of way. You know, if you believe this relationship it may have been more important to you than it was to the other person.
Right.
Yes.
And then they're growing,
Yep.
but just without you, they're still growing. You're growing apart instead of growing together, but there's still growth, and you feel some kind of way, or I feel some kind of way because I feel like now now you want to.
What's going on?
You know,
Right.
We've been friends. We've been buddies. We've been, my ace.
Why haven't you called me since 2019?
Exactly. And so you got a new job. You got new friends now.
Yes.
You know. You have to deal with those emotions and deal with those things, because sometimes it's not that people have just put you down or thrown you away or dismissed you. Sometimes you just grow apart.
Yep.
So that's good. So listen, here we're getting ready to get into the meat of some stuff now.
All right, let's do it.
The meat is crack your knuckles, get ready, get loose. How has the pandemic altered your view of church and ministry? Because it has been altered.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How has the pandemic altered your view of church and ministry?
I'd like to answer this in part, and I'm going to be as concise as I can. So, during the pandemic, at the very beginning, it was looking like, okay, well, we need to make adjustments, and at the same time having the forethought to say, okay, in preparation for the people to return, we need to make sure we stay connected, so that when we flip that switch, we can just grab the people back in. As time went on, it was like, okay, so the dynamics of worship are changing, and we need to look at that. So I would say for several months, I was trying to look at it from different aspects.
Okay.
I was trying to look at it from a pastor's perspective, from a senior leadership, and from that perspective. Then I was trying to look at it from the pew, if I could say it that way, and looking at it from now, all of a sudden, I believe I've shared it with you, I know I've shared it with Elder Mario, to say, folks, and I've shared it with my wife Tony, and said, listen, folks are going to church 3, 4, 5 times a day because they can choose whichever channel.
And they are. And they are.
And people are basically, they're saying, that was good, or I didn't like that song they're singing this time. And how do we deal with that when we do start to come back into the church?
Yeah.
So to try and take a 360 look, if I could say it that way, trying to take a 360 look at it, what does church in 2022 and 2023 and forward look like? That has been an opportunity, and I tell God all the time, thank you for helping me to be objective about it. Now, I do believe what we need to do as men of God and women of God is know and understand. I'll say it this way, I'll go kind of out on a limb. We can't church like we used to church.
Oh, no.
So
Yeah.
I grew up in Church of God in Christ in the 70s, where it was common for us to be in church 6 to 7 days a week between auxiliaries and meetings and all that. And then when we had service, my dad knew I got the house by myself for the next several hours.
Yeah.
I could watch a full football game. I could do. That time is gone.
Yeah.
And how do we, as ministers of the gospel, as leaders of the church, how do we now adjust? Not simply, I don't think we can ever change the standard of the Word of God.
Absolutely.
But how do we change the delivery method? How do we, like we went from postage stamps to email to IMs, how are we willing to do that with the gospel of Jesus Christ? The gospel is still the gospel, but how do we now deliver instead of through UPS to email? How do we get it to where it is palatable without compromise?
So some of the challenge in that is that there are some aspects of the word that take time. That you can't gloss over it, you can't get it in 30 seconds, that it's going to take some time in the word to understand it, to grow in it, to receive all of it in its entirety. What I mean by that, when I say that, you can read a scripture, let's just say Psalms 23, you can read that over and over again, and one day something clicks, and you see
Illuminates that
something
you
that
never
you've never
saw.
seen before.
Absolutely.
But it takes time in that text. One of the things that we have to, that I'm very cognizant of, is that we are in a instant culture. When I say instant, everything is right now. We never turn off. The World Wide Web is always on.
Yes, sir.
So there's no, when I was growing up, we turned off. The way the flag would come on after Houlihan and Big Chuck.
Yep, Houlihan and Big Chuck, Lil John.
Lil John, the flag would come on, and and TV would sign off.
TV went off.
That's it. Go to bed. Ain't nothing else on TV. Go sleep. Now the TV never turns off. The internet never turns off. We're always on, and so everything's instant. We would get some news, and it may take several days to get around the world. Now everything's instant.
7 seconds to get around the world.
7 seconds is around the world. So what happens though is that now we have a culture that expects everything to be instant, everything to be this quick. And what I find is that everything this quick, oftentimes, while it may be a great deal of information, what you retain is very little of that information. So what we become are people who are this wide, but this deep.
Snippets.
That we are shallow in what we know and the information we've gathered, because it's always coming, and we want it so quick, and we want it instant, and we don't want a long, time in that particular information. We just want it quick. Give me, the nuts and bolts of it. Give me the high, the high level scope, but that's it. I've been in meetings, and I've said this. I'm guilty of it myself. I'll say, just give me the high level view. Give me.
We live in a high level world.
Bullet points. If you give me more than 3 bullet points, I'm not going to sit here in your presentation. I'm gonna cut you off. I'm gonna close this out, and I'm going off to something else. Don't give me more than 3 bullet points, because we want the high level view.
Yeah, right.
Here's the thing. The word is not that type of interaction. Faith comes by hearing,
And hearing by the
word of God. It's a continual effort. And so some of that dynamic, while we live in this world, of instantaneous information always on. We also have to understand that the people we deal with, we're going to have to help them slow down. Now, we're not asking them to slow down for 7 hours.
Exactly.
Right.
But we need them to understand that the word, it takes time to make a homemade cake.
There it is. That was going to be.
Yeah, it takes a minute to make a home. Or you can do the instant cake, Put some eggs in
Or you can go to the
Right.
store and just buy.
Oh, yeah. No, you go to the store and buy.
Just buy the cake.
Yeah, you can just go buy the cake. But it'll
that's
never
what
be like the
it's
homemade
not-
cake.
You're right.
That grandma
That's it.
used to make.
So that and when you were saying about the instant piece, the first thing that came to my mind was the microwave versus the oven.
Yeah.
I was gonna tease Larry. Like my grandmother never had a microwave. My aunts and uncles bought her a microwave. It was something that sits.
And she probably didn't use the microwave.
never used it.
Yeah. Look at it and be like, look at that. What is that thing?
So, but since we're coming out of the season of Thanksgiving, one of all of our favorite holidays,
Absolutely.
there is a difference between when it is time is taken to make the meal, the time is taken to season and prepare the meal, as opposed to what this next generation feels, where they're like, man, it's so bad that the children don't even want to put in 1 minute. They don't even want to push 100.
Yeah.
They just want to push the 30-second button twice.
We got some
Feedback here.
You got that?
I think you got it.
Okay, thank
you.
So instead of that we have to get them to adjust to that microwave mentality. All the kids want to do is 30 seconds. All right, I got it. Let's bring it into technology. We have TikTok pastors.
TikTok pastor.
Oh yeah. Oh, for real. Oh yeah.
Because they'll give, and I believe in the 3 minutes, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
And we feel like, oh, not we, but there are those folks like, oh, that was so dynamic. I felt
In 3 minutes. In 3 minutes.
And give them 3 hours and come back and ask them, what was that word? What was the word about?
He had on his red shirt.
It was good, though. It was
Right.
good. I don't even remember what text it was, but it was a good word.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, when we get to a point where we're not willing to take the time with God,
Yeah.
we lose the nutrition of the word for our life.
Absolutely.
And when it comes time for we need to battle, we don't have nutrition
Right.
within us
Yeah.
to stand the battle.
Because fast food tastes good, but it has
No,
amount.
none.
It's loaded
It's
with all
anti-nutrition.
kinds of fats and salts and
And it will kill you if you live off of it.
byproducts. Exactly.
It will
we
kill
can't
you
even
if you
pronounce. And it tastes good,
For the moment.
especially to the younger generation. It tastes good, but it has absolutely no nutritional value. And what you find is you might be full, but you are starving because your body doesn't have the nutrients it needs to live. Now, here's another aspect of that. There's a whole generation, and I'm just using the same analogy. There's a whole generation of individuals who are being raised on the instant food and the instant, like, go to the store and buy the cake and all that kind of stuff, who will never understand the taste of a homemade.
Oh, the homemade. And it'll be strange to
Will
them.
never understand the taste. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me, oh, go ahead.
I got her, or just a little curious about something my brother said, even though he's accused, still call him a brother. Is that, let's look at, I heard you mention it a couple of times, you talk about worship, then you talk about church.
Okay.
So there's a separation, or is it?
Well,
That can go for any you get.
Okay, I thought you were just directing that to
No,
me.
he just brought it up, I just.
for me, at an early age, and one of the giftings that I have is to worship. My mother taught me a lifestyle of worship. Right?
There you go.
My mom would be in the car worshiping with 3 boys in the back of the car or dropping us off. Whatever. My mom had a lifestyle of worship. Seeing how we lived within our confines of our 4 walls, of the dynamic of family, and she still had a worship.
Right.
I saw and I learned that. So for me, I'm supposed to, at least I understand that I'm supposed to bring my worship into the church when we come, such that we create an atmosphere that says, first of all, I have to acknowledge, God, how awesome you are and who you are for my life, and then have the man or woman of God to give me some more food and more nourishment to be able to deal with Monday through Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. And even with that, too, is that in my ideal of the church is the same to a certain point. And it's to, you come in, you worship, you big top the word, but then you take it outside.
Yes, sir.
And
Absolutely.
you use it. And I think that's one of the things that where we fall short a lot of times.
Oh, absolutely.
We get the word and share while we're in the church or the building, but never takes it outside.
And we eat that word, but we never share that word.
Right.
You know, we never become, we eat it in the Bible, you know, the Bible talks about eating the whole scroll. We eat the word, we consume it, but then we never become it.
Right.
We never become the living epistles to be read of men. You know, one of the things that so Larry, I mean, you read the old dog on you know, on the set. Me and you read the old dog. You're a little older than me.
I'm gonna talk about, you can't be eating that whole cake.
Wait, let me say this though. I want to say this because I want to understand. There was something that both you and I understand about courting. So that's a foreign term to a lot of people.
Oh,
courting.
What is that?
So let me tell you.
Basketball?
Courting.
Courting to me means I need an attorney.
Right.
I'm going to court. Courting is meant that it took time.
It's a process
to build a relationship, and we have lost the art of courting God.
Right.
Of course.
Because he says this, and he says, and I've been talking about this, and I talked about it last Sunday, and it bears repeating. God wants you to pursue him. Jeremiah 29, he says, you gonna seek me. You will seek me. And I will make when you seek me with all of your heart, I will make myself to be found of you. But he says you're gonna seek me. You have to seek me. And we want God, but we don't want to go after God. We want the stuff of God. We want the things of God. We even want to be in his presence, but we don't want to pursue God. And courting takes time. And you're going to have to go back to that place. And again, we want things instantly, but you're going to have to go back to the place whereby which you are spending time with God. God is not bound by the time that you and I are bound by, and it is no consequence to God. God is not bound by time. He steps in and out of time as he wills, as he desires. And we're bound by time, but he's not. So you can't impose your schedule on God and say, God, I got 5 minutes for you, God. And he's going to say to you, it ain't going to be enough. So keep your 5 minutes and going down the road.
When you get down the road, all of a sudden, you're going to have 30 minutes for me.
Can I add something? I want to add a little hope to this discussion here. And I want to go back to your original point, or your original question. This is one thing I think we have to think about and realize. While before this pandemic started, some of the things that you mentioned about our people was already in existence, about people being this wide, but only this deep. Before the pandemic started, when the doors of the church was here and open, we had probably the same amount of people that was this wide, this deep, that still did the same exact thing. What this has done from my perspective of the church, and I'm choosing to look at the glass half full, this generation does not read books the way we do. My children do not know what a radio is. Like a radio. They're like, what is that? A record player. They don't, what is this disc thing that looks, a record?
Is that a frisbee?
Right. So the thing that this pandemic has done was it has taken people like you that understand the deep principles, and it has allowed you, do you realize that you have over 300 hours of preached word permanently imprinted on YouTube, which is a vehicle that this generation use to learn. They learn skills from YouTube. They digest information from YouTube. And where They can come into the church and they'll hear it and they'll leave out this Sunday, but they study YouTube. They study Instagram.
Yeah.
There's messages that you have, snippets of information that has gone out on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. And while, we're seeing those views go up, this generation, when it gets to a point where they realize, you know what? I need to get deep into this.
Sure.
The resources are already laid there. The foundation is already there. We may not see the fruits of it immediately right now, but when that time and I feel that God is going to cause this to happen, he's done this on purpose. Mm-hmm. Because it's a lot of people like you that have that knowledge, that foundation, the importance of understanding that, hey, we need to be deep in this word.
Sure.
He's caused this pandemic so that it almost forced a lot of us older people to get into these areas and spaces that we probably wouldn't have naturally navigated to, because we're thinking about the local body.
Yeah.
What this pandemic has done was change my perspective of what it means to be the body of Christ. Because you're reaching people in other countries.
Absolutely.
You're reaching people in Africa and countries I've never heard of.
Sure.
That I can see the analytics of who's watching these videos, and I'm like, this is the body of Christ. It's no longer just the local assembly and what I'm doing and the people that's coming here and we passing out CDs that get made here that's sitting in people's cars forever. We're actually being exposed at a whole nother level.
Yeah.
And so the opportunity for that deepness, I think we'll see that with this generation, but they have to catch up to that maturity. But when they do, the content and foundation is already there.
It's already there. And I think that is so key. And I think what you're saying, I hope you're listening to what Elder Mari just said, because I think that is the dynamic of change, and the change agent of church and ministry is the way it's communicated.
Yes.
Yep.
It is not what's communicated, but it's how it's communicated. And so one of the things, and we've all heard this, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
And so while we may sit down in a setting and devour the elephant over a 3-hour period, our younger generation may not do that, but they will eat it one bite. They'll take a bite, leave, come back, take another bite, leave. And what's happening is, because the message, like you were saying, it's in these different venues and avenues and different technologies and social media sites, they can go back anytime they want.
And it's
they
there.
can take a bite, leave, come back, take another bite. That was good. I'm coming back tomorrow. Come back, take another bite. And that gives them the opportunity, as you were saying, to become and grow deeper. And when they grow deeper, they'll want and desire
more.
And I do appreciate that perspective, and I too agree. One of the things that I find is that this, not just this generation, but this time and period that we're living in, we have the opportunity to binge on whatever we want.
Yeah.
Like, you said the content is there. So first, let me say, it is incumbent upon each man and woman of God to study this word, to take the time to rightly divide the word, because once we put that product out there,
it's going to be out there.
It's out there.
And now, so let me say, for instance, I like Star Trek Next Generation.
Okay.
He like the original.
Yeah,
I like Next Generation.
Yes.
So
Picard.
Either one of them.
so what I'll do, I'll turn it on and I'll go through. But I could sit down and binge through how many seasons? Just because I want to.
But that content was created years ago.
Exactly.
But it's available.
The information is available.
The technology makes it available
even
now.
if we get to a point where we are rightly dividing and we're studying and we have bishops and pastors who are putting the content, it is incumbent upon us to make sure that the content that we are putting forth, when it outlives us,
there you go.
it's still there.
And it's still over. Isn't that wonderful?
Yes, but we have a responsibility to make sure the sincere milk of the word, the meat of the word, is pure as it is intended.
Absolutely.
So that when my grandchildren one day, because my daughters and my son can pull up and say, listen, look at your grandfather preached this word right here about love. Or my great-grandchildren can say, I just don't understand, why do people keep saying I need to love everybody? Let me tell you, go to the love pastor. who break that thing down.
Yep.
And he's got 19 segments about love that you can really see from all these. But we have to study it and know it. And the pandemic offered us this reset.
Yes.
To say, okay, it was a long time ago, but I was guilty of it. Somebody said, hey, you gotta preach. Okay. I'm ready. No, you're not.
Yeah. No.
But because I didn't do all that other foolishness, I got away with it because I could stir emotions. Now somebody can get past the
but this generation see through that.
Exactly.
They got some questions. Oh yeah.
Okay.
That don't work no more.
So what were you really saying? All that?
I hear all of the hoop and all of that. Yeah,
What are you really saying?
you only said like 5 words though. Like it took you 10 minutes.
You're absolutely right. Well, listen. I got to skip some of these questions because I'll need to get to these two here.
Okay.
Because these
all right.
are
this is good. I'm loving this, God. This is awesome. This is good.
So listen.
You got any questions yet?
I don't know. Have we got any questions? Yeah. Not yet. Come on, guys. Now I know you got some questions, some comments. Feed them to us, but we're gonna keep going on because we got a lot of stuff to say.
Hey Bishop, I got one thing.
Yes, sir.
One point I want to make before we move on. And when you was talking about the courting and stuff, and you said one of the things it is that you have to make time for God.
Absolutely.
Guess what? During this pandemic,
You're making time.
you couldn't. You
time.
should.
Yeah.
You couldn't work.
That's right.
The only thing you could do.
That's
was
it.
go
No excuse.
home.
No
And
excuse.
None.
That's it. And that's what hit me. Boy, I said I wouldn't have gotten the word more. I studied because I didn't have nothing else to do.
So we got no excuse now.
What's all this time?
We got all this time, and
That's it.
yeah, you're absolutely right. A few weeks ago, co-pastor Tony and I had the opportunity to go down to Brunswick, Georgia, and stand with Ahmaud Aubrey's family in prayer and presence with hundreds of other pastors from all over the country because the statement was made that we don't need no more black pastors. And so, again, we stood with them in prayer and presence. It was a tremendous turnout, brothers and sisters, black and white, both alike, standing with the family. And the challenge for me is that this is the America that we now live in.
Yes, sir.
The current climate is such that it's divisive. It is set one against the other. It is not about liberty for all men. It is not about equality. It is, in fact, very divisive, and separatism is existing more now and running rampant throughout all of America. So I want to ask this question and pose this: given the current climate of America, how do we lead our families into 2022? Whew. It's a lot to think about, a lot to consider. In this climate, the current climate of America, where other nations are looking at this nation and they are in disarray, they are in total disbelief that we are in the 21st century, that we are dealing with individuals in the way that we are. And I'm talking about all systems.
Yes.
I'm talking about political systems, authoritative systems. I'm talking about every kind of, and even religious systems.
Yes.
Religious systems are being divisive in establishing separatism amongst the people. How is it possible, and how can we lead our families into 2022 with the climate such as it is now?
To me, there are several or different approaches, and to me, the key part is you don't accept the situation that's taking place and what's going on, but yet you got to keep it in the back of your mind.
Certainly.
Don't let it become an hindrance. Just use it to motivate you to go forward. And I'll use myself as example. I done seen this before and stuff. It's all like my father was a slave, my father was a sharecropper and all of that. One of the things that they taught me was that, hey, look, everything that you try to build they're going to take away from you. So
Wow.
it was kind of a preparation, but the one thing that they told me was that the one thing, they can take anything that you have away except for what you have up here.
Sure.
And so, and I used
That's it.
that, and I've lost things a time or so to where it was taken. But I learned from that, and I don't like to say manipulate the system.
Sure.
But what I
Make it
did
work for
was yeah.
You learned
I,
how to navigate the
I
system.
had, and then when I was in the military, it was in air defense, predominantly white or branch. And so, and I'm an officer.
Sure.
And so it was sort of like, I said I live with sort of like the puppet. With screens and everybody swinging at it.
Okay.
But the one thing that I did was use the people to gain knowledge.
Sure.
And the knowledge was helping me to beat the system. And as I progressed up, I went back and tried to make changes for the guys that were
Coming after you.
coming through.
Absolutely. And I think that's imperative, that we have to look at it from that perspective, doing what's necessary now so that those individuals and generations coming after us can live better
Right.
and achieve more. But what I have to deal with too, along with that, is I have to be concerned about my sons when they leave the house
Yes.
and get in their cars and
I was
drive
just
down
gonna
the
say
street.
that. Yes.
I've got to be concerned about them being pulled over by police, them being harassed by police, potentially shot by policemen, and again, there's every policeman is not a bad policeman.
Right.
I emphatically believe that without question. It's the bad ones I'm concerned about, though, and it's the individuals who have this authority that they take upon themselves to be both judge and jury, and they execute black young men. And so that's problematic. It's problematic with our social systems in place, again, the political systems, the authoritative systems, and even the religious systems that I feel like that we are fighting on every side.
Absolutely.
On
Yes.
every single side and every single system, we're having to fight all this separatism and this divisiveness and all these things that come at us to deter and prevent us from simply being equal.
I definitely want to add to that. For me, the best way that I've identified that I can lead my family in this particular climate is through education and awareness. And I'm just saying for me, and like I know for many of the men on this panel, by nature, I'm protecting.
Yeah.
I'm guarding, I'm shielding, I'm creating this conducive environment for joy and happiness and peace while all of this chaos that I'm aware of is going on.
Yeah.
And I'm slowly finding out that in some areas I'm doing an injustice for my girls.
Yeah.
And in some cases even for my wife.
Yeah.
And so the awareness that they have to have of, I see what's going on. I'm going to rest and own the feelings that I'm feeling, whether, however hard it may be for me to handle, because it's going to be needful for how they address it as they mature and when they get older. My youngest daughter wants to be a defense attorney.
Okay.
And she has a gift. She asks the right questions and she's provoking and she can say, well, hey, this doesn't make sense. And the thing about it, what I'm seeing is I have to kind of back up a little bit and let her explore those avenues because I'm becoming more and more hopeful for this next generation, honestly. I think that we're going to leave our society in good hands because there's a lot of things that they're just not going to accept that I was accepting of. With, hey, this is just this injustice that I'm getting. This this is how I have to act. This is how I'm a black man, so I have to be sub to this culture, or I have to act this way, or I have to curb my enthusiasm on certain things, or I have to shape my words around my Caucasian counterparts. Where this next culture, they like, I'm going to be me.
Right.
And there's a liberty, in that. But with that liberty, there still has to be awareness in how do I express that liberty? How do I reach my goal of communicating my point without coming off as, angry, aggressive, or provoking to the point where you want to shut me down or do harm to me. So it's a balance, and it's really hard, but my first step is I have to allow them to be aware of the things that I've been trying to protect and shield them from.
Yeah, and you know what's so good about that statement and the whole of what you're creating is that you're letting them experiment and have a voice, because that's what's going to be needed in this next season for this next generation. And we can't create these bubbles for our families to live in.
Yes.
Where we protect them, keep them in the
I
house.
was good at that bubble.
Don't let them, we create a bubble. And my bubble is safe. Y'all safe in this bubble as long as you stay in this bubble. And I can control what happens in this bubble.
Right.
But if you leave this bubble, it's going to be problematic, because you're going to have to deal with stuff that I can't protect you from. And understanding that, you teach them and you show them, help them understand the climate in which we live.
Yes.
Awareness,
But you also have
education.
to help them understand that at every generation, at every step higher and closer to equality, and doing away with separatism and division and all those things, is that there's a cost. There's never been a generation that was able to make some headway in those areas without paying a cost. And we have to help them understand that there's a cost to pay. That there is, and every generation has to pay a cost. There has to be sacrifice, and they do things at the cost of sometimes their own liberty, sometimes their own freedom, sometimes their own lives, to be able to position the next generation to take a step higher. But even then, that generation doesn't understand there's a cost at that level.
There's casualties in setting precedents.
So
It is.
Absolutely.
I have taken the approach.
We got about 2 minutes.
I've got girls also. So during the George Floyd marches that were all around the nation, Jay wanted to be a part of the march. And I paused, I prayed, and I said, okay, here's the compromise. You can go, but I have to go with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I told her when we got to the place where they were gathering, I said, I'm going to give you your space to be able to do. But what you need to know, I am going to be within 1.5 seconds of to make sure you are where you're supposed to be. So teaching her, if you want to do this type of demonstration or protest, the safest way to do it and still be heard. So taking the experiences that we have and sharing it with them. And I want to encourage the young people. I know you think we don't know, you haven't been there, it's a different time. There are some things that are still applicable, and we've lived and we've learned it. And we are trying to save you this 5 to 10 years of hard-headedness that we had to save you the time. Sometimes you have to trust that maybe, just maybe, we know what we're talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's been some great dialogue. I wish we had more time. I think this has been one of the best segments that we've ever had. And this all-star cast of individuals.
There we go.
Deacon Larry Jackson, Pastor James Tazo, and Elder Mario Smith. I'm Bishop A. Jamie Croone. We love you all to life. We pray that this new year that we step into is full of blessing and favor and open doors and possibilities for us all. Until next year, the Lord bless you, and we'll see you real soon.